The Enterprise is charting 6 star systems that make up the Argolis cluster. Jordy thinks the name 3 of 5 suits Hugh. And when Gynan scored 2 touches last week, she fenced well enough, but today she keeps letting Picard inside. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 5, Episode 23, you guessed it, Borg, written by Renee Echevarria, directed by Robert Lederman. This was May 9th, 1992. Where were you? You guys are in luck. We have you remember where you were. We have a very special guest, you guys. He knows exactly where he was at the time in front of his TV watching his episode. It's Hugh himself, Jonathan Del Arco. How are you today, sir?
Hey, how are you guys?
Awesome.
Great.
Awesome.
It's
so
funny.
good to have you.
I was just thinking before I came on, not where I was when it aired, but where I was when I auditioned for it, which was like 2 months prior.
That's perfect.
And I was trying
Tell
to
us about
remember, because I've never talked about this, because who talks about like when they audition for something necessarily? But I remember I was in this dumpy apartment. I had moved to LA from New York like a year prior. And I had literally like a futon on the floor, and I was going to go to premiere of a movie I had done, some little part, and I got the script for Borg and got completely engrossed in reading it, but I had to leave. So I left, went to this thing, came back and stayed up all night reading it and working on it. And I had no VCR, no TV, no VHS even of Best of Both Worlds. So I had no clue. None what a Borg was, other than what was on the page. And it was so well written that you didn't need to have the reference. It was all on the page, right? It was clear. And I remember I had like all morning to prepare for it, and I made all these decisions of how to do the part and how he should be and how he should dress and all this shit. And I was just thinking, like, I had like literally nothing. I had no furniture. I had nothing, but this great role came along, and I don't know how I was lucky enough to get it.
Well, obviously because of your performance, which was, A1 in this episode. Do you remember the scene at all that you had to audition for? Was it the Picard kind of climax in this episode? Was it one of the Jordy scenes?
It was not the Jordy scene. Definitely the scene with Picard in the ready room where I try to figure out. Oh no, there was a Jordy scene. It's the first scene where I'm kind of a badass Borg, full on Borg. So they had that one was the first one where I'm like, you will be assimilated, and Jordy's like, that's nice. I just fed you, whatever he says to me, like nice play, buddy, or whatever. It was that one, and then it was the one where he softens and he has become human and doesn't want Jordy to die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, you talked about the script jumping out at you, and the episode jumps out at me as being, one of the exceptional episodes of this series because of the writing. Renee
amazing.
Echevarria, does a fantastic job of really playing on our emotional, strings in this episode. Can you tell me, was that the thing that really interested you about the role? Like, is that what the meat of getting into this humanity of this person?
Yeah, absolutely. To be honest, I had moved to LA after I'd lost a partner to AIDS, and he had gone through a period of dementia where he couldn't know who anybody, didn't know who anybody was. It was this very innocent person emerged when the dementia happened. Like all the personality traits of this person were like gone, and what was left was kind of this childlike wonder and incredible openness. And that's the voice in my head that I heard, was that person. So it had a lot of emotional punch for me because I'd just gone through that experience and like was a caretaker for this person. And it just really, like, it was very, very, very easy for me to slip right into that which I had watched, right, and had all this personal stakes for me personally, right? So everything that was happening for my character in this role was incredibly internal and helped by the fact that I was completely covered in rubber, whatever, like I didn't have that much, I didn't have that many options for physicality. So it was like restricted, which made it for filmmaking, it's the best, right? Because then it's all just happening here and then in your eyes, right? So yeah, it wasn't a hard role for me to play. It was I just slipped right into it. It's really kind of amazing, to have
beautiful.
that experience. Yeah.
Had you ever seen or heard of Star Trek? I mean, you'd heard of it. Did you have any knowledge of it, or were you just saying, you know what, this is a role, I'm gonna knock it out?
No, I tested for the role of Wesley when I was living in New York.
Okay, so maybe you could tell us a little bit about that. Did you actually meet Gene Roddenberry?
Yeah, I never met Gene. When I was in New York, we would test for things, or when you're a young actor in New York and doing Broadway and stuff, you get we used to get a lot of opportunities to test for things in LA. So it would be like they would put you on tape and they would send it off. And I got pretty far. I mean, my tape went to, I'm sure Gene saw it. And, when you're testing for a role, it's down to like you and 3 other people or whatever. So I was one of those 3 or 4 or 5, or whatever the number was of the people that were up for the role of Wesley. And when the series aired, I was like too pissed to watch it. It was like, I'm not watching that. So I had never, but as a kid, I was a huge fan of the original series. So when I moved to the U.S. in the 1970s as an immigrant from Uruguay, I learned English watching TV, and one of the shows I watched was Star Trek. I would like have it on late at night, and I would just watch TV all the time. And that, like, in 6 months, I learned English watching TV, and Star Trek was one of my rotations of shows that I would watch. So I always wanted to be a Vulcan. You know what I mean? Like I had like the things I wanted to do on Star Trek, which I've never done. But yeah, the Borg, I didn't know what they were because they didn't get developed until the series had already, gone into season whatever it was 4 or 3 when the cliffhanger happened.
So you mentioned you hadn't seen the Borg, and you get the job, and you obviously killed in the audition. Then they get you for a wardrobe makeup session, and what are you thinking when you're sitting there?
Oh my God! I am thinking. I just realized I'm claustrophobic. I'm thinking what actually happened was I awakened to my claustrophobia, and I was like, "Oh shit, I'm claustrophobic. This is going to be a big problem." It was rough. I mean, I remember they didn't tell me what the costume was, and they didn't say, by the way, you're going to get into this like full body suit, and then we're going to put another one over that, and then we're going to start adding pieces on you, which you're not going to be able to remove, like because the costume was made of other pieces. They didn't make one just for me; too expensive for a guest star, I guess. So I was covered in parts of other Borg that had been used in Best of Both Worlds. So they were just trying to fit like a calf and so I couldn't just take it off. Like if I had to go to the bathroom or if I had like a panic attack, it was on. And I didn't know it. I remember them zipping me into the bodysuit, and I'm like, should I go to the bathroom? They're like, do you want to go to the bathroom today? And I was like, what?
Today?
Oh my God.
Yeah. Which at my age now, that would definitely not work. They would need to really have that would definitely not work. But at that age, you're like, I could hold it for 10 hours or whatever. But yeah, no, it was pretty intense. The wardrobe was the hardest. Like that was it was torture. I mean, the bald cap came all the way to here, so there was no air coming in there, and then it was all the way to my back, and then all that rubber stuff was on top of it. So I had about 35 pounds, like the top part was like 35 pounds that was digging into my hips and my back. I mean, it was pretty brutal.
So you lost 15 pounds that week, basically.
Probably. Probably. I know my back was completely jacked after in my neck.
You must be soaking wet, like dripping, you know what I mean?
Dripping wet at the end of the day. When we did the the other 2 episodes, the follow-ups, not that we're going to talk about them, but we had a ton of stuntmen that were in the same thing passing out. Because we shot that other one, we shot it in summer. Yeah, here we are. It does get over 100 in LA, right?
Yeah.
And it was hotter than hell. And I was used to it by then. I would like take because the rubber would come off the headpiece, and I would just flip it over during my breaks and just get a bunch of air, and then Michael Westmore would have to glue me back in. Yeah.
We love Michael Westmore, though. That dude is a saint.
Oh my God.
Did you have any thoughts on the cast that you worked with? Was anybody particularly easy or fun to work with, or was it just season 5? Everybody's just professional, getting their work done.
It was great. The one that absolutely stands out in my mind is Whoopi, because she was extraordinarily kind. I mean, I was a fan of Whoopi, so I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna work with Whoopi. Like, I have a scene with Whoopi. Like, what kid gets that opportunity? She just won the Oscar or something, and she comes in beaming. I mean, she's just a radiant person, and she's like, "Look at you, aren't you cute?" Whatever. We had this exchange, and then she insisted that we do my coverage first, which is the filming part where you're the one on camera. And she was like, no. The kids and a lot of stuff, get him covered. So she insisted on that, and like made my day to like be so kind and like so generous. You know, I love that scene too. And then when we were done, she's like, come back and see me after you get out of your makeup. So I like got out of all my stuff, and I went and said hi to her.
And she didn't recognize you one bit.
She was like, oh my God, you're so cute. Yeah, it was great. It was great. So she was great. Brent was hilarious. Gates was very friendly. Patrick, obviously LeVar. I remember I was dying and drinking a Coca-Cola like at 8 a.m. And he's like, you shouldn't be doing that. He's like, that's really not good for you. I'm like, but it's like coffee. He's like, no, it's like Coca-Cola. He was very like, LeVar was very like dad with me, you know, like, you shouldn't be drinking that crap. So yeah, everybody was great, and nobody was jaded. You know, I feel like, I guess the show was just hitting its stride with the fans, you know? So I don't think I'd gone anybody's head. You know what I mean? Everybody was very friendly and really fun atmosphere to be a part of, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, this is like getting towards the end of the season, and people are, they've already put in 20 something episodes so far.
Yeah.
Mike, I wanted to ask you about, you know, because you're coming in as somebody who's disliked by all the characters.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Basically
like, oh
yeah. And was there any sense of that like carried over, or was it just only on camera? Like,
no, not
the
at
friction.
All. I mean, you know, the truth is they already knew that they were going to have to fall in love with me. Right. So that was already in their head, I'm sure. And you couldn't, the thing about the character is you couldn't hate him. It was very difficult. Even when he was being a Borg, he was incredibly cute, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it was designed in such a way to be like, oh, but you don't want to hate him, right? I mean, that's the whole point of the episode, is like, how do you make an enemy? How do you make an enemy, you know, be vulnerable, right? So yeah, that's no, I didn't have any experience like that. Everybody was really great. As a matter of fact, everyone on the lot, when I got into wardrobe and they drove me for approval because they were too busy to come to like the state to see me, they put me in a golf cart and took me, and like crew members from other shows started coming out and be like, the Borg are back. Like, they were like flipping out. Like, the Borg were back. And I was like, I don't know what just happened, because I have no idea what this is, but apparently this is a very popular, you know, creature race, or whatever you want to call it.
It's like Thin Lizzy said, the Borg are back in town.
Yeah.
So it's no secret, Jonathan, that this is an A+ performance by you. Really freaking phenomenal, which is why they bring it back in subsequent episodes. And in Picard, really happy about that. But I don't know what was in your head when you were actually shooting the episode. Was there a particular moment or line where you thought, I totally nailed that one? That's they're going to love this one. Was there a moment there where you're like, I got this one?
Yeah, because I get like emotional when I even think about it. Even now, which is like crazy. But when he says, "We are all still alone," to Whoopi, yeah, and she's like, "What?" You know, like, we are alone. Like the concept that this person understands loneliness, right? That's the key to that character. Is I think the reason people respond to it is that we all experience loneliness, either as children, definitely as we get older and we are senior citizens. You end up alone. Like the old saying, you come into the world alone, you leave alone. I think loneliness it's a big part of the human experience, and I think it's just such a trigger for people, right? And the character was a classic case of isolation and loneliness, seeking friendship, connection. He'd been disconnected from his family, So yeah, that line, "We are also lonely," is the one that I was like, there's something really powerful happening. You know what I mean? You could, Sirach, when you're doing a series or a play or whatever work you're doing, when you're doing something that's like, ooh, you get the goosebumps and you're like, this is special. And it has to do with like so many things that are out of your control, like the writing, who you're acting with, the moment, how prepared you are, how you're clicking into the character. It's like one of those knowing moments. You're like, well, this is going to last. Like this is a moment in my work that is going to permeate throughout my life. And it 100% has. I mean, I'm still talking about a job I did for a week, in 1992, just bananas, but
yeah, but
that's art,
what I think you did very well as a guest star in this episode. The scenes that you had were opposite a lot of heavy hitters in this. You're up against Whoopi Goldberg in a scene, right?
I mean, bananas. You're like, what? Yeah.
You got Patrick Stewart over here dressing you down as a Borg, which is my favorite scene. I just enjoyed
I love that scene
whole
too.
trickery.
You got LeVar Burton, Kunta Kinte.
Yeah,
these are heavy hitters.
Yeah, you shine in a personal way with each one of them. I felt like you make a connection with each character. And in a way that is almost like, it's funny because the resistance is futile aspect is actually coming from them. They're resisting you.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
And,
they're the ones that are like, no.
Yes, they're like, no.
You are a problem. You are a bad problem. I can't love you, right?
Yeah, I can't love you. I can't accept you. I can't even see you as anything but, a non-human or somebody that doesn't deserve rights, essentially.
I mean, thematically, it's like through time and space, right? These are the things that constantly come up in human nature, right? The othering of another group, another race. It's kind of like a human experience, right? To be like, not them, they're scary, or they're a threat, or they are not one of us. Like othering,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I thought that Renee did a great job with the language in the othering, because he did things like using the word "it."
Yes, that was the big one.
He says, "Feed it, feed it." I think feed it.
Yeah.
And then even later on, it says, "That's what you things do." Was also one of the themes.
Yeah.
So it was this whole like objectifying and
dehumanizing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I thought you did a fantastic job, because there was just it's funny the turnaround, because when Gynan hates you, right? You kind of like, oh well, that's it. End of the episode.
Executive producer Rick Berman.
At that point, it's like, well, if you didn't win her over, I guess what else are we gonna do here, right?
Yeah.
And so when that hate that Gynan shows really sets you up very well in those scenes, you know what I mean? Actually, everyone's hate sets you up when you come into the scene without that level of hate, more of a condition.
Yeah, he doesn't have any of that. Like that's the thing about him is I don't even think he understands hate. It's not a part of,
right.
Which what's interesting about the Borg is like why they fascinate people is in some ways, they're considered evil or like all this stuff, but in actuality, they're totally in community. They're just like, right? They're like totally in community. There's no difference between any of them. They're very equal in a way. And the things they're doing are for furthering their knowledge, right? So it's challenging for people to like look at a Borg as, a non-threatening, obviously lack of individuality is hugely problematic for any human, right? That's the most frightening thing is that's going to be taken away from you. I would say that they're evil in that sense, that not they're evil, but their actions are like anti-individuality, which is not great.
Well, that's what the Borg do. They remove choice. They remove your choice, right? It's like correct. You don't resist because you don't have a choice to any other.
It's very, very frightening. So they represent a whole other frightening element of humanity, and the very human reaction of the Enterprise to be prejudiced, afraid, othering is like a natural knee-jerk reaction to a threat, right? So it's a classic human conflict, right?
Which is why this episode is so fantastic. Well performed, well written. A little bit about the director, Robert Letterman.
Yeah.
Any words about your experience working with him?
So he was amazing. So he was one of the editors on the show, and this was his first time directing.
Okay.
And I actually love working with directors that are editors because they 100% know exactly what they want to get. They're like, I know what I need in the editing room. Can you do this? You know what I mean? Yes. He was great. He was a terrific director. I really, really enjoyed him. I don't know that he got to do that many after that, but I remember it was his first episode, out of the editing bay. I don't think he edited it as well. He may have because he was one of the regular editors. I liked him a lot.
I thought some of those shots were film worthy. Like they actually.
Oh, he's great.
Film
beautifully. There's that shot of Hugh looking at the fish. I love that where he's like he's looking at the little fish in a tank, like feeling like he's that fish, right?
He's he's the fish in that fish bowl. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hey, so I looked up Robert, the director. You're right. One other episode after this one, and that's it. 2 in total in his career. Nuts. It's in the 7th season of Next Generation, but he edited Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, so we're almost out of time here. We just have a couple more minutes, Jonathan.
Sure.
But can you tell us what's going on in your world? What's new?
Oh, cool. Yeah. I wrote a children's book, which I'm really excited about. Wow. It's called Freddy the Alien, and it's my immigration story and its trajectory into becoming an actor and ending up on sci-fi and Star Trek. So it's like the alien idea being that this immigrant kid feels like an outsider and an alien and then becomes one, right? So I wrote this with a friend of mine who's an educator named Trisha DeFazio, and we found this amazing illustrator that named Adria Navarro, Alvarado, who works on Star Trek Online. So she's part of the Star Trek family, and we're really, really close to being done and going to print, and we're gonna launch it in August, and I'll be doing like book signings and stuff around the country. I think the fans are gonna love it because it's not Star Trek, but it's my story, so it's got like that line, that Star Trek through line in it. So I'm super excited about that. And then I did a film during the pandemic that is just now starting to kind of get some traction. It's called The Grotto. It'll be available, I think, to rent on YouTube, on Apple and Amazon, I think, in July at some point. So
what's it called again?
Just The Grotto.
The Grotto. Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what's going on. And
that's not about Playboy, the Playboy Mansion, is it?
No, actually.
All right. Okay.
No, it's actually kind of a spiritual film in a way. It was directed by Joanna Gleason and written by her, and it's about the grotto. It's a bar in the desert called the Grotto, based on the grotto in Lourdes, where the Virgin Mary appeared. So it has a lot of spirituality in it, but it's I would say like a romantic kind of dramedy is what it is. So yeah, I love it. It's a really great little film, but I'm really, really excited about the book. It's going to be available to the fans. We're planning a really big, fun thing to do. I'll be posting about it as we get it more put together. But there's some really fun fan related stuff I'm going to do with it. And I'm also going to be at the Star Trek convention in Vegas in August.
Can't wait for that.
Yeah,
but this is really cool because it feels like it's such a story that's so close to your heart. It's relevant. It's a little bit of sci-fi, so that's fun for the kids, but it has a real human theme. It must have really felt fulfilling to write this out and finish it and look back on it and say, yes, this is what I want to put out there.
It is. I'll tell you, I've been working on it for over 10 years. I wrote it as a pilot first. It's about my childhood. So it was a pilot, and then it became, someone said, make a screenplay out of it. I wrote a screenplay, and then someone wanted to make an animated series. So I wrote an animated script, and none of them took off. None of them. And this friend, Trisha, was like, let's write it. Let's work on it together. She's an educator. And she's like, I know like what children's books sort of need in order for them to be educational and have like a value. And she goes, let's make it a children's book. And I'm like, what? It had never even occurred to me. So we did it, and we're just putting it out there. I think I'm super proud of it and really excited. And the timing could not be more like on point because of everything that's happening with immigration right now. And the othering of, the othering of immigrant children. I mean, we're not even talking about immigrant adults. I'm just talking about innocent children, like the othering and the bullying that's happening to immigrant kids and migrant kids is disgusting. And I hope the book, which is written in English but has a lot of Spanish phrases in it as well, so it's kind of bilingual, so a kid can like pick it up and understand it, maybe pick up some language at the same time. So I'm hoping it's like really a hopeful book for anyone that feels like they don't belong, for whatever reason, because of the their origin, their race, whatever gender whatever it is that makes a kid feel that they are not okay and that they don't belong. The story is about saying like, actually, that thing that makes you think you don't belong is going to be the thing that makes you really, really great, right? As an adult, right? Whatever that means to you, for me, it was ending up in Star Trek and being an actor, getting to do what I do. But it was because I was different that I got to do all that,
It's fantastic. So, it's amazing.
Yeah. So I think the Trek fans are totally going to get it.
Oh yeah, I do too. I think it's the it's kind of the opposite of what you said in this episode about being alone. You said we are alone. The idea is to make people feel like they're not.
Correct.
And the more we can do that, then the more people feel like there's a community, that they're embraced, that they're loved, that they're recognized.
And that's why Trek fans and the Trek world always has that, that sense of like, we may not belong out there, but in here, we all have a common, positive thing to connect to, So,
ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
Well, Jonathan, this is really cool. We hope everybody can follow you on social media or be in Las Vegas or wherever it is that you might be around, where you can make your announcements and do your book launches and things like that. Can't wait to hear more about this, but we really, really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us today.
Thanks,
this is a great episode.
You were
really
amazing,
fun.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
This was a treat. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody,
guys.
Stick around. We will be right back with more on The Seventh Rule. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Sirach freaking Lofton.
Yeah, hello.
Not a day goes by that I'm not unbelievably grateful that this man is my partner. True story. What freaking luck. It's just the best thing ever. Here are...
Same way.
Thank you. Here are the Trivioids of the week. The Enterprise is chartering 6 star systems that make up the Argolis cluster. I don't even remember if it's chartering or if it's charting. Anyway, Borg implants can synthesize any organic molecules their biological tissues require. Jordy thinks the name 3 of 5 suits Hugh. When Gynan scored 2 touches last week, she liked fencing well enough, but today she keeps letting Picard inside. Beverly likens the treatment of Hugh to a rat in a cage, despite all her rage. The Borg assimilate civilizations, not individuals. All right, not a ton. There weren't a lot of Trivioids because I felt like this episode was just story, right? There wasn't a B plot. There wasn't a lot of like slice of life moments. There wasn't a lot of like, techno babble or character studies of certain main characters. It was just from beginning to end this one through line of a beautiful story. So this is your first time ever watching it. What'd you think of it?
Well, I would tell you how I feel, but I don't want to Borg you.
I don't understand. when you said I would tell you, I was like, oh, here comes a joke. I can already see it coming.
I loved it. I thought it was a great episode. Really good episode, as a matter of fact. And I don't know, from the beginning, it's like, at first I was like, oh gosh, Dr. Crusher, you gotta be against the grain.
Yeah.
There was part of me like,
she's such an edgelord.
Yeah, she was just, it's like, oh, gotta stick up for this guy. I'm like, and I get it. She has the Hippocratic oath that she has to abide by, right? So everybody is like, a life to save, and it's all about saving lives and what the right thing to do in those moments are. And so because she's guided by that, I think, she raised the alarm to what this episode was about. And, part of me was like, I was thinking Worf might have got this one right again. You know how Worf sometimes make a suggestion in the beginning and everybody either they're like dismiss Worf or they agree with Worf.
Right.
It's one of the two. It's either they completely dismiss him or they consider what he says and they're like, you know what, Worf, I think you got a point. And they very seldomly, but once in a while, they go along with what Worf says. And Worf in the beginning of this one, I think he said something like, we need to kill it now.
That's Worf for you. He's like, oh, same line as last week. What do you know?
Yeah, same line. So I was thinking, is Worf right? When Worf says that, right? Because you're thinking, sometimes he's right, sometimes he's wrong. And in this moment, when he proposes that, you're thinking, oh, is this going to be those things where it turns out that Worf was right? We should have,
Yeah.
So that kind of left me, that's just great writing again by Renee, because it left me thinking that thought. Is Worf right in this moment, in this suggestion? Because sometimes he is, and sometimes he's completely dead wrong and way off. But in this case, you couldn't tell. And then, like I was, telling Jonathan, when Whoopi comes in the scene and basically is like, oh no, I don't want nothing to do with those guys. Like, like I don't look at them as, with the same respect that I look at other alien races and species, And so when she was dismissive of it, it kind of made me think, okay, Picard's on the right path. He's got, he's eliminating a threat before, before
she's like the show's moral compass in a lot of ways.
Right. But in this particular instance, it was Dr. Crusher who was being the moral compass in this episode. And that kind of rubbed off on Jordy as well. And I thought Jordy showed a really great, like the moments that he had, first of all, the humor, the talk back in the beginning, the questioning of this Borg really being, somebody that has individuality or capability of that. Him trying to execute his orders, which were given to him by the captain about, creating this virus. I thought Jordy balanced his orders, his obligations as an officer, and what he was directed to do by the captain well with his personal emotions and what he, became his feelings on the matter. And how he balanced that was, I thought, very well portrayed in this episode, because he kind of swallowed his tongue for a moment, right? He kind of he raised his objection to the matter of creating this virus, and then there was pushback by Picard, and then he just said, "I, Captain," I
Yep.
I follow rules, and I follow the rules and the orders that you give me. So, but he was conflicted, as was Crusher.
Yeah, oh yeah. I couldn't agree with you more about Jordy. I thought this was one of his best episodes because they gave him some pretty fun lines, but he really nailed them. Like, there are a whole bunch of them. Like, for example, he says, "You're hardly in any position to make any demands." That was funny, and his delivery was great. And then when he says, "Oh, his name was third of five," Jordy kind of sarcastically says, "It does kind of suit you." Another funny delivery and great line. Then when Hugh says, "You are not Borg," and Jordy says, "That's right, and I hope to stay that way." Another funny line. Or when Hugh says, "You will be assimilated," he goes, "Yes, but before that, we want to," I mean, there was just all these great little things, and he delivered it so well because, we always admire how great he is at the technobabble, how great he is at acting without the use of his eyes, all of these things. But we got to see Jordy, the quipper, kind of quipping and kind of making little cracks at like this kind of sarcastic, like, "Okay, bro, yeah, okay, that's cool, but real quick, let's just do this first." He was great. I thought Jordy, it felt like it was a Picard episode at first, at the beginning, but it became a Jordy episode. And it was so good to see him have these kinds of, wisecrack, quirky, sarcastic, funny moments. It was beautifully done. But what did you think of what you also touched on Gynan, and I thought it was really interesting that usually she's the listener. She's the compassionate one. She's the teacher that teaches us how to befriend a little girl and be nicer to this person. But this time she was on the opposite end. She's like, "Kill it." And they're like, but. And she's like, "Nope, kill it. It's terrible. It's bad. There's no, this was the first time we've seen her on the other end of the argument. And I think that's really cool because, like you said, it gives us the perspective of like, nope, Whoopi's always right or Gynan's always right. So yes, we got to kill it. But she eventually turned. What did you think of seeing Gynan a little bit harder than usual,
I thought it was great. And what I liked about it was unexpected. And that's good writing to me, is when I'm expecting something and it's not so I was expecting her to totally say to Picard, it's not right to treat,
Right.
like give him the whole lecture and make him, give some example. Well, what would happen if you were, and just give him a scenario that places him in a mental
Right. But this time
puzzle.
she's like, "What are you going to do?" He's like, "Kill it." She's like, "Hell yeah, high five."
All right, yeah,
Like,
let's
cool.
move on. Yeah. And I was like, but then she gives us reason, though. And I thought that was great for backstory on her character when she talks about, the Borg basically not giving Guinan's people a chance when they assimilated them. And, I guess they ran into her people, and she has a scar memory because of that. And so she harbors this hate for the Borg based on her past experience, which I thought was very accurate. That's that made sense for why she felt so strongly about it, because it was coming from personal lived experience that certainly looked like it traumatized her. But to be, what was great about her was that she gave it a chance. She gave the advice of, I think it was Beverly, right, that said you should talk to him. Or was it?
It was either Beverly or Jordy. Yeah, now I'm getting second thoughts on it. But
yeah, I think it was Beverly's advice. But I just liked that moment there. And so, I don't know. There was a few people that stole this episode. I thought Gynan stole it for a few moments too. You mentioned whose episode it was. Gynan had some really great moments there. We see her fencing with Picard. I thought, she had that scene. She had seen 10 forward. I mean, there was just a lot of moments there where we got to see more of Gynan than we've seen in other moments, in other episodes. So it's crazy because I was like, as I watched the episode, I'm thinking, who's hitting the home run here?
I know.
Right? So you're looking and you're like, there's a lot of, because Jonathan really nailed all of the notes to make us actually have sympathy for this Borg, who we look at as this killing machine that's a predatory, species that just goes around, annihilates and assimilates everybody that they want. And so for us to have sympathy for that character was really a testament to his performance, because he really laid out a performance that, when he says, for example, to Picard in the ready room, and he says, Jordy would rather die than be assimilated.
So good.
It was so good because he was sticking up for his friend, right? And you could see him like processing that, like, I can't do that to my friend who explicitly said that that's the last thing he wants done to him, And so he won us over in those moments. He won us over in the moment when they said to him, you have a choice, and, we can keep you here on the ship and you don't have to go back. And he realized that not going back was a threat to people that helped him, right? And that he actually now cares about. And so he was making the choice to go back because he has made that connection with them, because he has a friendship with them, because he doesn't want to bring unnecessary harm in their direction. He's making the choice to go back, right? And I thought that was another great kind of lesson for us about taking the high road that this character did.
Right. It showed his humanity. And, there was the first line where I saw an obvious change, and I thought was really nice, was when he was in the ready room and Jordy walks in, and you can see that Hugh kind of perks up like, oh, my friend is here. And he goes, hello, Jordy. And he kind of said it in a way of like, like with this sweet, innocent, like, oh, my friend is here, that I feel so much happier, there was definitely something there in the way he delivered that line that we were supposed to notice. We're supposed to notice that he's warming up and that Jordy is his friend. Well, we're already running out of time here. Well, we've teased the home run of the day. Where's that? Here it is. Sirach Lofton, who do you think gets the home run of today's episode? Good luck.
Yeah, this is very hard. Well, I'm going to do a two-parter. I'm going to say the first home run goes to Jonathan Del Arco, guest starring in this episode. Really being phenomenal in all the scenes opposite the regular cast. He just hit it out the park. He hit all the notes that were necessary in the scenes, and he pulled on her emotional strings. So I thought that was just great. But I have to say, in addition to his home run, I have to give it to Patrick Stewart. I have to give it to him because the anger that he showed with Whoopi, when Whoopi tried to come to him and and say, hey, let me talk to you about this. And he jumped up and stood up and yet raised his voice and really was angry. The disdain that he had for this Borg was unbelievably palpable. And the moment of realization that he had when he was interrogating the Borg and trying to deceive it into believing that he was taking orders from him as the Cutis, I thought was exceptional. So, and it just was like fantastic to me. That scene was like a movie quality scene. It reminds me of Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson in Few Good Men when they're getting to that moment where it's like, I need the truth out of you. And I felt that level of intensity in the dialogue of that scene. And I thought it was played perfectly. So, yeah, I have to give Patrick Stewart for just too many beats that he hit that were really pushed the story along as well and made me feel his dilemma of making this decision. So those are my points.
Yeah, I agree with you halfway. I got back-to-back home runs for Jonathan Del Arco for all the reasons we've stated. Absolutely beautifully done. He got asked back over and over again because of that. But for me, it's LeVar Burton. He got some lines that were good and were fine, and he could have just delivered them and they would have been fine. But he added a little extra sarcasm or a little extra wit to make them funny. I mean, I laughed out loud, which is an actual rarity. We don't actually usually laugh out loud. We just go, huh, or, blow air out of our nose or something. But great job by both of them, in my opinion. Home runs for the both of them. Also, our friend Joy, who does our Instagram and some website stuff for us, she asked what episode we were doing. We said Jonathan Del Arco is here. And she was like, hands down, moving and stellar performance that made a single episode character resonate for a lifetime. So I think that's pretty awesome. That wish we had seen that before Jonathan left so he could hear that too. But anyway, okay, home runs are done. It is time to say very special thanks to our pals. Their names are Dr. Anne-Marie Siegel, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackman, Tom, TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri, Titus Moeller, Dr. Mohammed Noor, Anil O. Palat, Joe Balsarati, Mike Gu, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, the Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Jake Barrett, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Hyde, Julie Manasfi, Jed Thompson, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, back from Italy, Glenn Iverson, Dave Gregory, Chris Sternett, Greg K. Wickstrom out in Hawaii, Cassandra G., Chuck A., Chris Garris, Mark Zutkoff, Lamaya Lancaster, Sean Mouch, Amiram Mizne, remember him? And of course, Jason Oken. All right, everybody, stick around. We got the free-for-all up next, and we will be right back on The Seventh Rule. Well, hi there, everybody. Welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton. This is the free-for-all, if you can believe that, with Melissa Longo.
Well, hello there. How's it going?
The effervescent Jason M. Oken is here as well.
Hi, everybody.
We call him Bubbles. Faith Howell is on the bridge of the Enterprise D. That's effort.
I love that. Bubbles.
Let's not make that stick. I know he doesn't want
It's
that.
It's so sticky.
It's so sticky.
Mark Zutkoff is here with 3 cool screen grabs. Allison Leach Hyde is here. She's matching Melissa Longo. TJ Jackson Bay is right next to Faith Howell on the bridge of the Enterprise D as well. Chuck A has a ton of cool stuff on his wall. Carrie Schwent is outside of a Borg cube. Chris McGee is known as the Dark Lord, and the Matt Boardman is going to edit stuff for tomorrow. Walter's episode. All right. Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
Gesundheit.
I mean, it looks like it might be like a 9.1 even.
Wow. Does anybody else have any guesses that doesn't already know? Faith is happy with your guess, though.
So 21. 21.
I'll go with 8-2.
Ooh.
8-9.
Ooh, this is fun.
Mm.
I'll
All right.
try 8-5 just for the heck of it.
All right. It seems like all bets are in. The correct answer is 8.8. Very close, you guys. Very close. Very good. Faith is happy with that.
Sure.
What a relief. What about, I didn't hear any non-appearance mentions. Do you guys? Okay. What about Chris McGee, Dark Lord? Some kind of or some sort of?
We had no fewer than 4 in this
What?
episode. Crusher, commenting on Hugh's prosthetic eye, said, "Look, some kind of holographic imaging system." Then as Jordy and Gynan are talking in 10 forward, Gynan says, referring to that Borg as though it were some sort of lost child. And then Jordy responds saying, programming him like some sort of walking bomb. Then later, as Picard is justifying his decision to Gynan, says, "It is what it is, and in spite of efforts to turn him into some kind of pet, I will not alter my plans."
The pet was like, wow, that was rough. All right, Melissa Longo, please get us started off on the right
question.
track. Yes.
Would Cutis be in there?
Oh, interesting.
I was wondering that too.
No,
Because we didn't really see him, did we?
no, but Patrick Stewart is there. And he is Picard. His body is Picard.
Damn,
So-
Melissa's a hard ass today.
I don't
Jeez,
know.
she's
I don't
usually
know.
the softest on non-appearance mentions.
I didn't see an eye on him. I
I
guess
know.
it's inside of him. Okay.
Wow.
Right.
Woo. She's
Sorry.
taking names today. She's chopping heads. Well, Melissa, would you please get us started off on the right track then? Thank you.
Oh, okay. I wasn't meaning to be mean. That wasn't meaning to be mean. I wasn't. Can I just say how much I love this show? I love this show very much. And particularly this episode, because this show does give us episodes like this one. And I can't tell you how many times I went, oh, during the watching of this episode, because Hugh needed a hug. Hugh needed lots of hugs, and I wanted to give him a hug. I wanted Jordy to give him a hug, especially at the end. But there are so many beautiful scenes in this episode, between Beverly and Jordy, between Jordy and Hugh, between Jordy and Gynan, between Gynan and Picard. There are just so many wonderful gems in this episode, and yeah, it just and Jonathan Del Arco, gosh, what a great performance from him too. My favorite line was "We are Hugh," and, and when Jordy was saying Hugh, and then Hugh says, "We are Hugh," and Jordy laughs with his beautiful smile. And I have to say that I love Beverly Crusher for pushing the envelope and sticking to her guns as a doctor, because everyone else would have written Hugh off. I want to say how much I love Jordy and his openness and willingness to receive other people, even if they are, quote unquote, his enemy. You know, he's willing to be open to receiving new people and learning about their perspective and where they come from. And I have to say that I feel bad for everyone who's been assimilated into the Borg because they didn't have a choice to be assimilated. They didn't have the choices that Geordi was giving Hugh. Yeah, there's so much to say about this episode. I enjoyed it very much. I enjoyed it very, very, very much. I enjoyed all of the performances of the people, and I'm just going to keep repeating myself. I enjoyed it very much.
Great stuff.
Don't mince words. What do you really think?
Yeah.
I enjoyed it very much.
Thank you very much, Melissa Longo, for that.
Oh, wow. You're waiting on that one.
Sorry, I'll cut that out. Cut that out of the edit. Don't worry, that was terrible.
That one was begging to be said.
Yeah. Jason M. Oken, what do you think about this episode?
Oh,
Bubbles.
Don't do it. I regret it. I'm sorry, Jason.
Oh, God.
it's absolutely awful. It's absolutely awful. Who cares if it's considered one of the best episodes of the series? It's just awful.
No.
It's an episode with a wonderful script that's just beautifully performed. It is perhaps, one of the best pieces of evidence that you don't need barrel rolls or explosions to be entertained. Just to step back and think. You certainly have a wonderful performance by Jonathan Del Arco. Even, with all the prosthetics and everything on, you can actually see the transformation. And the interesting part is his character is not the only one that's transformed. You see transformation and at some level, even in Geordi, certainly at a great level with Whoopi's character, Gynan, and with Picard's character, taken from sort of this cold, this is Borg and this and the other thing, to something we see at the end. So it's a wonderfully structured script that's performed beautifully by everybody. I think the performance is very, very nuanced. In some ways, the way it was shot, when the scenes got personal, you really have a lot of tight close-ups in this one. It's not that typical. You see it periodically, but there are a lot of tight close-ups here, especially in emotional scenes. And when you see that on occasion, that's kind of wonderful. And again, a lot can be said here. We can laud this episode for a long time, but I think it holds, the main thing here is the writing and the performances, and I'll save the rest for later.
Mm-hmm. Great stuff. Thank you very much, Jason M. Oken. Didn't notice your shirt until now. That's a great shirt.
Thank you.
Okay. Faith Howell, what's up? Hugh loves season 5. What do you think of this?
So this is, a Borg episode, and as you may remember, typically hate the Borg. All of them, I find, especially from Next Gen, think they're terrifying. This is the one Borg episode from Next Gen that I absolutely love, and it's 100% because of Hugh and Jonathan Del Arco. That arc of, complete, automaton into a real human being. And, he's just so thoroughly likable by the end. And you send him off and wonder what's going to happen next? Like, what's going to happen with the Borg? Are they going to be, and I almost wonder, it would have been cool if they had plugged in that we actually have the Borg queens because of this. It's that connection has never been made, but it's not impossible. Definitely my favorite parts of it are the arcs with each character coming from absolutely not where this is just a thing where he's an enemy, we've got to fight him, to every single character coming around except for maybe Worf. As I said that, coming through to really valuing Hugh as a human. And I think my favorite scene is the ready room scene where Picard is arguing with him and interrogating him. And you see him go from we to I and really fully become an individual. I think that is just so cool. And one thing I thought was interesting that maybe hadn't been as fully fleshed out at this point compared to like Voyager's version of the Borg is that it's like they're forgetting that these are us. These are people that used to be, maybe he came from Wolf 359 and was taken off of the Saratoga. Maybe this was Jake's best friend at the time. We don't know. And I mean, he looks fully human. So I think it's interesting that they didn't mention his species at all, other than him being a Borg. So, but otherwise, yeah, I definitely agree with everything that's been said so far. Sorry, I'm fighting with Kyle over a tablet.
That's okay. Thank you very much, Faith Howell. Great episode. But what did Mark Zutkoff think?
Well, I was one of those who, when I watched the first airing of this episode, was disappointed that it was a step in the direction of defanging the Borg. Watching it now, I have to reconsider that. By itself, this was a good step in the evolution of a Star Trek foe. On the planet, shot on planet hell, but looking much better than those episodes shot there in the first few seasons of the show, Dr. Crusher continues her challenges of Picard, but it's poor Worf who says, "Kill it now," and once again, Picard does the opposite. When Picard leaves the bridge to go to his ready room, I love the look Data gives Troy, almost a go do your job look. And she tries, but Picard is awfully good at deflecting, both with words and with a foil. Picard refers to the Borg as it, which harkens back to Bruce Maddox calling Data it in The Measure of a Man. Speaking of the fencing scene, Gynan looks angry throughout it and takes the opposite tack to her usual opinions, understandable given what the Borg had done to her still unnamed people. Then we get a LaForge and Gynan scene where the two switch roles. LaForge is the voice of reason and suggests to Gynan that she, quote, "just listen, that's what you do best, isn't it?" One could make the argument that Hugh is repeating much of what he's being told. Resistance is not futile. People are lonely, etc. But it's a nice symmetry between Crusher's lonely statement and Hugh's echo of it to Gynan. Gynan comes to Picard, and this time she has her trademark Mona Lisa smile. Then she switches to the same look she gave Picard in yesterday's Enterprise when she convinces him to look Hugh in the eye before using him to destroy the Borg. The scene where Hugh recognizes Picard as Locutus and Picard immediately switches into full Locutus mode is chilling, beautifully acted by Patrick Stewart. Most of the dialogue in the episode is spoken softly, so when a character raises their voice, as Picard and Jordy do, it has an impact. And my home pun of the episode, with several of our cast changing direction of their thoughts during the episode, you could say their opinions took a Hugh turn.
Home pun of the episode. Somebody call the licensing department. That's good stuff. Thank you very much, Mark Zutkoff. All right, Allison Leach-Hyde, your thoughts on this episode?
It's a wonderful episode. Anytime we get Whoopi, it's going to be a great episode, especially one where we really get to see Gynan as a person, not just, not just somebody who dispenses wisdom. Like, she's going through something, and beautifully acted. And so I always enjoy that because, we start with she's going through a journey, and so I love that. I love Hugh going through a journey. Jordy is my favorite character, and I think this is a fabulous Jordy episode because we do see his open heart and how he cares for beings, individuals. And so I love that. So I do truly enjoy this episode, and I gotta, do a shout out to Wes Moore doing wonderful Borg makeup as always. And it's fun to see how the Borg makeup it changes, like every time there's a little bit of a change and how that's progressing. I think my biggest, why would leaving Hugh with his memory of becoming an individual on the ship be something new for the Borg? Because they were all individuals already when they were assimilated. So they were already individuals. So why would that be like a thing that might, even for a moment, pass through this small collective? That would be, something to like tout and go for. So that's my one thing. I'm like, they've all already been individuals. We don't think these are Borg babies. We think these were assimilated beings. So why would that be new? So I think that's my one little nitpick, but I love the end bit where as Hugh is being transported and he looks at Jordy. I love that. I think that was a wonderful way to end the episode. That
was great. Yeah, because you wonder when he's transporting, is he even going to acknowledge him? And then at the last second, he looks
like, you're my friend. Bye-bye. Yeah, I know. I'm going to look, but it was wonderfully done. So
yeah. That was wonderfully done too. Thank you very much, Allison. Leech Hyde out in the heart of New Mexico. TJ Jackson Bay, what's up? You're in Missouri. What do you think of this one?
Allison is the heart of New Mexico, in case you didn't know. Mm-hmm. Okay, this episode, I'm going to have to leave the bridge and go to the bar because, that's just where it takes me. Not the party going, not the holodeck. There we go. Right there in Quarks. I had to get off the Enterprise for a minute. This episode, there are so many journeys, and they are all deeply moving, and it's so well written and so well acted. I especially appreciated Gynan, Jordy, and Hugh's journey, along with the rest of them, but especially those, because Jordy, when he comes in, he's just kind of like in the middle of the line with this, like, okay, he has his orders, he needs to create, this destructive program, and so he's doing his job. But as he does it, and with some urging from Beverly, he starts to question what's happening. But from the get-go, as soon as he goes into the detention cell with Hugh, he starts talking to him and begins to start, reasoning and making his kind of own thoughts about what he's dealing with here. And Gynan's journey was especially moving for me because she's moving from such, a deep emotional wound. This is someone who's a member of the group that destroyed her home planet. And so she obviously hates them, right? She has no love for them whatsoever. But she obeys the urging to go and talk to him, and the way she acted that in her face during that conversation, I think is what deeply moved me, because yes, you can hear it in the words and the lines, but it's her face that tells the story of when she goes from, I can't hate this guy. He's just, he's exactly what Jordy described. He's a kid, and he's lonely, and he has feelings, and he's not the faceless enemy, that I've seen the Borg as all this time. This is a person, he has a face, he has a personality and his own feelings. And so, that moves her. And Hugh's journey is also very deeply moving because he goes from being just that. He goes from being this kind of faceless, non-existent individual to a person with his own feelings. He goes from the we to the I. And I think that's something that's deep and important to reflect on, because I feel like many of us also share that journey in society, when we go from just being a part of the system to being, a full individual with our own goals and making our own way in life, and making our own mark on society and on each other, which I think is important to do. I think it's important for us to be our individual selves and be beautiful in our diversity. And it's a rich experience for me whenever I get to interact and talk, with someone else and learn who they are, as an individual, not just what they do for work but what they really love and appreciate in life is. And so that was deeply moving for me to see that develop in Hugh, and for the people around him to discover that as well. I could talk about this episode forever and ever, but I got like just 2 points left. They're small, short ones. And one of them is, I'm often critical of security on the Enterprise because every other week they get the ship taken over, or or a ball of light comes in or something. But in this episode, if you notice, the only people that know that Hugh is on the ship is the command crew and maybe Gynan. I mean, there are people talking about it in the bar, obviously, because Gynan heard about it. But he's never in a corridor. They beam him directly to the detention cell, and then from there to the lab, and then he beams to Picard's, office. And so I got high praise for the security in this episode because they maintained the secrecy. One thing, however, that's things left unsaid. I'll get to that. But the last one I want to touch on again was the look when Borg when Hugh is transporting up to the ship, because up to that point you kind of wonder, did his individuality really stay intact? And so when he gives the look, that, and you see it in Geordi's reaction too, that's when Geordi knows, okay, it worked. He's still Hugh. And so my quote of the episode is fitting for when he's stepping onto the transporter pad on the Enterprise, and he says, "I do not want to forget that I am Hugh."
Beautiful. Thank you very much, TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri. Chuck A is next. He's not in Missouri, but he's been there. What do you think of this episode?
Well, I have 5 favorite episodes of season 5, and this is the third of 5.
It's 3 of 5.
This episode was always one of my favorite episodes. Jonathan Del Arco was really very, very fantastic in this episode. I love the interactions with Geordi, LeVar, and it's been mentioned with the scene with Picard at the end, where he was Hugh identified him as Cutis, and that conversation was really stellar. I was wondering too why Hugh, when he got his talk with Gynan, why Hugh was kept on asking Gynan, what humanity was like, and Gynan kept on pushing that she didn't want to, and feel that she didn't really want to talk to Hugh. That I think she told Picard that. That was also a really well done scene. The episode itself was, I thought, like I mentioned before, is one of the better episodes, and it was very well written, and it really played well. And we hadn't had another Borg episode since, I guess, The Best of Both Worlds. So it was really good to see that they did that episode. And I was reading on, I think it was Wikipedia, that the script was very well received by all the writers and the staff, and they really wanted to do this episode, and they thought it was a great idea to do it.
Seems like everybody is very high on that script, so that's great to know that it was so well received. Thank you very much, Chuck A, aka TNG fanatic. Carrie Schwent, aka Crafty Bear. You love the Borg. You're right outside their ship. What'd you think of this one?
I love this one because, as my shirt reminds everyone, assimilation means you will always have friends. Yes. And this episode's fantastic. And I looked up on IMDb. There's a link you can click on. This it shows you like the highest rating, and it has the list of from top to bottom where all the episodes fall as far as their IMDb score. And this one is number 10. Number 1, we will be seeing very, very shortly. And you could if you have seen it, you could probably guess which one it is, but it is coming up soon. And when I was also looking on Memory Alpha, there was a quote from Michael Piller, and I took the last part of it I really, really liked. And he says, "I feel that if you take the unstoppable villain, the stereotype, and you turn it inside out, that's great storytelling."
Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree, because if they stay just the one note the whole time, that's gonna get boring. You gotta add, more depth, more layers, more colors to it. And I really like that they did that, and they go even further with all of that in Voyager. And yeah, I love, but yeah, Beverly is a rock star. She's thinking like a doctor. She's thinking like a mother, because this is someone who looks to be about the same age as their son. So that's probably subconsciously part of why she was insisting, okay, we got to take care of this kid. I don't care that he's a Borg. He's coming up to the ship. I'm gonna fix it. And I just added a note a couple minutes ago. I have like a headcanon as to why Tori kind of disappears from the episode after that ready room scene, because we don't see her again. Once we see Gynan, we don't see Tori again in the rest of the episode. So my headcanon says that after her trying to talk to Picard in his ready room, and him being just that brick wall, she's like, okay, I'm clearly not gonna get through to him. I'm gonna let somebody else take over, because clearly what I'm doing isn't working. But both, Jean-Luc and Gynan go through just fantastic journeys, and it's fantastic to watch. They both have their blinders on, and both for very, very, very good reasons. But it's not till they both actually talk to him that they change their minds. And in both scenes where they're talking to him, and I agree how just spine-chilling Picard talking like Cutis is. I get goosebumps every time I watch it. But you can see it in their face when the switch flips in their head, and they go from absolutely hating him because he's a Borg to like, okay, wow, he might just be an individual after all. And I love that. And it's like, I thought of it like a set of dominoes. That Jordy starts the dominoes sort of tipping forward. He changes his mind first. He goes to talk to Gynan, throws out that amazing line as he's leaving 10-4. He says, "Oh, go ahead, don't talk to him, but listen, it's what you're good at, right?" Perfect mic drop line as he's leaving the scene. I love that. So then she goes and talks to him, changes her mind. She goes to talk to Picard, gets him, because he's in the same thing, like, why I don't need to talk to him, why would I go talk to him? He talks to him and then changes his mind. So it's nice to actually see that. I love that Jordy's the first domino, because the two of them, Hugh and Jordy together, were absolutely adorable. And yeah, this is definitely the first episode where we get to see that once you're separated from the collective for long enough, you start to regain bits of your individuality. And again, we see a lot more of that later in Voyager. And there was another note on Memory Alpha from Jerry Taylor, and once I read, I can't unsee it. She mentions that Hugh was a lot like Edward Scissorhands, and I can see that the makeup is just like Johnny Depp's makeup in Edward Scissorhands. The mannerisms are even almost pretty close to the same. And am I the only one whose wrist and wrist and arm gets sore watching him turn his wrist like this, like 90 degrees to plug into the wall socket? They couldn't have put the sensor anywhere else for him to plug into. They had to make him turn that, because that outfit was restrictive enough to begin with, the poor thing. I don't know how he managed to get his wrist bent enough to plug into that little guy. And I've got something very interesting that I found out that I'm going to save for things left unsaid. But Jonathan Dorco I read online that he's a big fan of TOS, enough to audition. He almost was Wesley, but then didn't get the part, swore he was never going to watch it again, but then ended up becoming part of the Star Trek family anyway, being Hugh. And I actually met him one of the times he was on the cruise a couple of years ago. Such a super nice guy, just absolutely fabulous to talk to. Very much enjoyed that. But of course, for the limerick for the episode, of course it had to be Hugh's limerick. So I will finish with that. My new friend Jordy helped me to see that I is sometimes better than we. But now I have to go back so my friends won't be attacked. The others should have the chance to be free.
Yep. Thank you very much, Carrie Schwent, a.k.a. Crafty Bear. All right, Chris McGee, you're the Dark Lord. What do you think of this one? Darkness? Fire and Brimstone?
Pretty much. Well, first, I echo everyone else's thoughts regarding this episode. Writing, acting, pacing, etc., all fantastic. No need for me to repeat what has already been said. However, I'm going to tap into my Dark Lord persona today because I have, or rather had, I guess, an unpopular opinion of Borg, in terms of its story, at least. Mark alluded to it earlier. The Borg were created to be practically an unbeatable villain, an enemy to be genuinely frightened of. I think the Klingons were originally created so that the Federation would have a strong adversary, but their image kind of softened over the years as we learned more about them and they became more nuanced and diverse, especially in the Next Generation when Worf gets beaten so often to demonstrate how strong someone else or something else is. So I could see the same sort of pattern beginning to develop here in Borg. In the past, I've called this episode the humanization of the Borg, because I felt like it took away their vicious edge. It seemed like it tried to make them more sympathetic, soften them just a bit. Nowadays, I'm kind of on the fence about it. On the one hand, so I believe the Borg maybe should have remained a faceless, unbeatable villain to be fought against throughout the series. On the other hand, I acknowledge that without exploring their race further and having Starfleet attempt to save the people that were turned into Borg against their will, we never would have gotten 7 of 9 and the others in Voyager. And as that show demonstrates, the Borg can still be a terrible force to be reckoned with, even with this humanizing episode. A couple of observations I made while watching this. It looks like Ensign Kellogg fills in for Worf when he's on an away team. And the first time I saw this episode on the air, I always mistook that face-down Borg that we saw on the planet as being face-up, but with his arms twisted backwards somehow. The fold in the back of his neck kind of looks like a mouth, and his face has been, like, I don't know, ripped off or something. So that shot of him is very brief. So when it aired on TV, I couldn't rewind to get a better look at it. I just remember that shot disturbing me quite a bit. So for the memorable quote of the episode, it's definitely got to be Hugh subverting the age-old line and saying, "Resistance is not futile."
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Chris McGee. All right, the Matt, what do you think of this one?
Well, as everybody else has said, and I fully agree. I mean, this is a fantastic episode. I love when you have an episode that makes you think, because I don't know if you guys have ever had moments in your lives where you have somebody that you don't know very well, and you don't necessarily, your first impression of them is not very good, or you've had some interactions with them, and they're either not pleasant, or you're like, oh my gosh, okay, I need this person to leave. But then you have a moment where you get to know them better, and suddenly it's like, wait a minute, this is actually not a bad person after all. And I understand, yes, I don't like it when they take the bad guys and like make me look at it from a different perspective. He's not angry, he's just misunderstood. But the thing that I love about this is that it challenges our characters. It challenges Picard. It challenges Gynan, who obviously have very good reason to have deep-seated hatred for the Borg. Gynan lost her, her whole civilization was upended by the Borg. Picard wasn't strong enough to stop the Borg from taking something from him. And that's as we learn later on in Picard season 3, it's something that haunts him still to that day. And so I like that moment in which they have to reconcile their hatred with this individual that's in front of them. And I think that's something that, even today speaking, is more important, because when we group people into collectives and we have a mindset of this is what it means to be those people, take a moment and interact with that person on an individual level, and you'll realize that there's more than just the surface level that we're being told that we should believe about those people. And that's one of the things that I love about this episode is it makes you think.
Mm-hmm. Great stuff. Thank you very much, the Matt Boardman. Reminds me of the saying, people are dumb, but a person is smart. That's always an interesting perspective. All right, Jake's final take. Your thoughts, Sirach?
Well, I thought it was interesting that they were going to defeat the Borg with geometry, like a shape that's a paradox. like literally, that's your evil empire being, basically defeated with a Rubik's cube. I just don't see that. So my mind couldn't really fully get to that as the thing that annihilates them. I like that Dr. Crusher brought up the fact that there was no formal declaration of war against the Borg, because I do feel like that is a check on Captain Picard's powers. I don't feel that he actually has the right or the authority to initiate this level of drastic extermination, as it would be, without running it up higher up the flagpole to his senior command and therefore getting permission, essentially. I don't think you can act unilaterally in this capacity to this degree. It would be too much of a casualty, and who knows if things go wrong, what the consequences of that would be. So I think he would need some kind of clearance from higher ups in the Federation. And that's just my opinion. Where's Riker? I didn't see much of him. Would have liked to have him in this episode. Would have been nice to kind of hear about the redemption that Picard had as a Borg. There was no reflection on that there was a path for him to escape Borgism. And so I didn't see that kind of really talked about and discussed. It would have been nice to have that really brought up more. So than what was brought up with Troy in the beginning about his insecurities or whatnot. It's funny because the Borg are known for assimilating, and I guess the really difference between the two assimilations that I'm seeing is one is forced and one is not. The Borg force you to assimilate, but in this case, the Federation and the crew of the Federation basically made the Borg assimilate to their way and their customs and their lifestyle and choices of individuality. And so that is a kind of assimilation too. To basically surrender yourself to a dominant culture or ideology is assimilation. So they were asking the Borg to assimilate. I thought that was interesting. This brings me back to the origins of the biological warfare kind of thing that happened with the Dominion and the Federation and the founders. This kind of brought me back to that. They were trying to find a way to infect the founders. And this is the same central kind of biological warfare idea. So I thought maybe that this may have been the origin of that, which is what they carried over into DS9. And then lastly, I didn't really like the name Q. I thought a more adequate name would be Psy.
Okay.
Or Schmorgus. That's it. That's all.
Mark Zutkoff looking at you like a proud papa right now. All right. That's it for us, everybody. If you are a patron, we'll see you on the other side in Things Left Unsaid. If not, why not become one? Patreon.com/the7th rule. Once again, that's patreon.com/the7th rule. Thank you so much to The Matt, Chris McGee, Carrie Schwent, Chuck A, TJ Jackson Bay, Allison Leach Hyde, Mark Zutkoff, Faith Howell, Jason M. Oken, Melissa Longo, for myself, Sirach, Melissa, Mr. Aaron Eisenberg. Thank you all very much for hanging out with us, and we will see you next time on The Seventh Rule. So always remember it.